You're in the right place at the right time, stretching from the distant spaceports of Batu, Tatooine, and Eriadu, all the way to the bright center of the galaxy at Imperial Center, slamming into your hollow projector like a supercharged nanoparticle of coaxium. This is the Star Wars Unfiltered podcast. I'm John, he's Jason, and we are here to bring you your needed dose of Star Wars film, TV, book, comic, gaming, and collecting news. The date is July 12th, 2021. 6 million years since our last episode, and boy, do we have a bunch of Bad Batch review for you today. Actually, a couple other small news items. We're going to be talking about the more books in the upcoming Essential Legends banner, and our thoughts on the Star Wars Vision special look trailer. How has the past few weeks / month been for you, Jason?
Good. I had a birthday, and the most notable item was I got the Jarek board.
Oh, really? Do they sell that?
Yeah, they do at I think it was only at the park at Galaxy's Edge.
Yeah.
And then maybe at the store at Downtown Disney. I'm not sure where my wife got it exactly.
She probably went to Target where they're offloading all the Galaxy.
No, I've been to Target plenty and looking, for my Jet Jaguar.
Yeah. I looked, I couldn't find him.
Yeah. I've only seen 3.
Yeah, there is a decent amount of Galaxy's Edge stuff at my Target, but it's not, I don't think it would even be close to what you would see if you went to the park.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Because, there's a lot of stuff that they want to be exclusive and stuff. And I think the Jarek board was one of them. I think maybe you can get them online or something now. But it's pretty cool. Like, I haven't tried playing the actual Jarek game.
How does one play Jarek without...
Eventually, I'll find out. My daughter's bugging me to play that, but I'm like, no, let's just flip the board and play checkers, because it comes with checkers too.
I wonder if Kalhar automatically wins, the creature from Super Star Wars that is the one that throws down
the boss on the cantina level. Yeah,
right.
I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah. He like nothing can defeat Kalhar.
There's a special rule.
Obviously I had a busy last several weeks.
Oh, that's not all. That's not all.
Oh, keep going. Let's fill this episode out.
No, I haven't set it up yet, but I got a C-3PO clapper. But I need to set it up.
Clapper.
Yeah.
Wait, what makes it C-3PO centric though?
It's his head. It's his head, and then I think he like talks to you. I need to set it up. I haven't set it up yet.
Well, if we could get that to communicate with Anakin and his alarm clock starfighter.
I still need to load 9 batteries into that thing and take a video of it. It's so bad.
Maybe one of your projects for the next few years is to convert those 9 batteries into what would be now a USB, like everything.
Oh, yeah, I know, right? USB or like a nice rechargeable battery or something. Because I got to use it, man. That's the best alarm clock ever.
Yeah. So in addition to the Anakin alarm clock from the prequel era, we might need on our channel video of the C-3PO clapper later on.
Oh, yeah, 100%. When I get that thing set up, I'll take video of it.
It's going to go viral.
Yeah.
Hopefully.
Yeah, you get viral C-3PO clap. How was your month?
Oh, boy. So much has happened. Well, first there was my dad visiting, which is, mostly pretty fun, and we got some things done, and
well, that's the whole reason we stopped recording for a while.
That was right, and we thought it was just going to be 1 week, which would work out because we were going to take a break anyway. And then my dad's staying stretched out to I think 3 weeks, and we had to move storage items, so there was a lot of that was the number one priority. But then in doing that over 3 or 4 days, that required breaks from just resting, and then we still wanted to do fun stuff like go to record stores in LA and everything, so we did that. And then luckily he was able to stay here for free with his friend's guest house, so he didn't have to get a motel or anything, so he could stretch it out. He has his social security checks coming in, direct deposit, so it was and I hadn't seen him since before COVID in 2019. So it was good to just catch up and do that. And then but the thing was, and even then when he left and things were kind of back to sort of a routine, it was like, okay, I still need some downtime to like just like catch up on rest and like, you know, it's like when you're too social for too long, you get burnout, and then it's like you have to like just, you know, not do anything for a while.
Yeah.
And then everything happened with Baldy, which is for anyone who doesn't know, that's my roommate and friend's cat who's here at the house. And then there was Baldy was pretty old anyway. He was around 20, and I've never had a cat last past 16 or so. So he was something had been wrong with him for a while because he was like super skinny and losing weight month by month for a few years, and he was only 6 pounds like right before he passed. And
Yeah.
so we knew something was wrong with him, and but he still was very active and he ate a lot. He didn't seem to gain any weight, but he ate a lot. And then one night he tried doing a jump he shouldn't have, and he kind of injured his back legs. I didn't see that there was anything particularly wrong. He still walked away from it right away, but he kind of gave a moan, and I was like, oh no. And then so we took him to the vet, and then again he seemed okay. He was on some medication for pain and stuff, but then it was like he started getting worse and worse over the next couple weeks, and it got to the point where he was in such pain he couldn't sleep, and he was just staring like a vegetable, like on the couch, unable to sleep. And it was like, okay, it seems like we got to put him down. So yeah, we had to put Baldy to sleep, and it's a strange thing because you know, having a cat you see every day and is very active in your life, it's like, you know, especially when there's another cat that they're kind of like brothers, so to speak, with Techno Puff. It's weird then when you take one out of the equation, because most times I've lost a pet or something in the last 10 or so years, it's my mom texting me about it. You know, it's like,
Yeah.
it's kind of, I'm distanced from it in a certain way, but to then see Baldy every day, deal with him every day, and then it's like, oh man. And then now it's like there's only Techno, and so when Techno comes in the room, my brain still thinks, is that Baldy, you
Right.
know, like coming in, and like, oh yeah, he's not around anymore. So it's just a weird thing. There's all these feelings of guilt, you know. It's like, what could I have done better, you know, for Baldy? And it's just a
Yeah.
strange thing, man.
The biggest thing, the biggest portion of guilt that I ever felt was for like cats passing, or any animal
Mhm.
really that you take care of, is the relief of not having to do that anymore.
Yeah. Yes.
Especially if they're elderly and they require a lot of
Right. And that was
care
Baldy,
and stuff. Yeah. So
because he would crap on the floor, and that's why we had to block off sections of the house. And because he would always do it in the same spots. And
that sounds like an old cat to me.
yeah, and just constantly letting him in and out, even more than a normal cat who does that
Yeah.
anyway. But
Yeah.
yeah, he was a handful. And so yeah, there is this like weird sense of relief, but then it's like, I'm not supposed to feel that because he passed, you know. So
Yeah.
it's a weird thing. But
Yeah.
boy, oh boy, man, that what a 6 weeks that was of just like craziness, and then that, and then um it's only been the last few days that I've kind of gotten back into a routine again of being a little more balanced with like doing tasks and other things and catching up on my sleep. I think I told you in a message, I slept like 16 hours yesterday and the morning before. It was like, it was like,
That's a pretty good marathon session.
dude. And well, it was split up into two. Like I slept like 10 or 11 hours, and I thought, okay, I'm good. But then when I woke up at like 4 p.m. after that, I was like, I'm sort of still messed up now if I wake up at 4 p.m., because then I'm, you know, it's like that's too late. So then it was weird. It was like my body was still telling me, like, no, you're still tired. You still need more. And I'm like, I was up and I was doing other things. And then um, I decided to lay down again at like 8 o'clock at night. And sure enough, I slept for another 5 or 6.
Yeah.
So I'm good. I've been up since 1:20 a.m. and I'm just gonna go as long as I can tonight, hopefully till 9 or 10. I don't want to overstretch it, but boy, man,
And then you'll be on a normal sleep schedule for 3 days.
Yeah, 2 or 3 days. We'll see what happens. But when I do get on an early schedule, I sleep better, and that's what I had been needing, because I wasn't cashing that check, so to speak. I was sleeping like 5 to 6 hours a day for like 2 weeks or more. So
Yeah.
just all caught up. and now I'm good to go with the channel again. We got the Rogue Squadron upload went up today, and so for anyone listening, that new series of the lore play commentaries is going to be continuing with 9 parts. And let's talk about let's talk about the Essential Legends banner collection.
Who says these are essential? That's what I want to know. Who's making that decision?
That is true, huh? But I gotta say, I
mean, I don't disagree.
Yeah, you know, and I can't speak for the Darth Bane books because you and I haven't read those, even though they're over 10 years old or whatever. But I gotta say, having the Thrawn books and the first X-Wing book makes sense. Those are definitely 90s classics.
Yes.
And hopefully they continue with the rest of the X-Wing books by Stackpole, but it's hard because between him and Austin, there's 9, so I don't know if they're all going to be Essential Legends, but certainly the first one I think is worthy, and there is new covers for these, and I'm not a little unsure about the Thrawn trilogy covers from what I saw, but the Rogue Squadron one looks really cool.
I like the Rogue Squadron one. I mean, I guess I like the Darth Bane one. That's fine. I didn't read the book.
Right.
The Thrawn ones, I feel like are really lackluster for what they are. I mean, it's almost
they're not bad. They're just
they don't fit with the enormity of those books within the old EU. Like the old covers, as cheesy as they were very much like old school Star Wars movie posters. So they had, they were trying to emulate something. Poorly, but still.
I always felt like it was such a missed opportunity that Struzan never did a Thrawn book. He did the Thrawn duology later, but the Thrawn trilogy, he never got to
throw him at making, like, if they had done like a reprint or something in the late 90s or something, throw him at putting those books in line with the movie posters that he had done, and they'd have been great. Instead, now we have this weird Mara. I don't know who the model was or something. But that doesn't look like Mara in my head or anywhere. It's so bad.
And even Mara is a weird thing because up until what's her name depicted her on the CCG card, who then became kind of the official Mara for artwork and stuff. Up until that point, she had these differing looks that weren't quite pinned down. So then, it was a weird thing with Mara, because then it's like, do you show her? Her hair was always described as red gold, meaning slightly blonde, like strawberry blonde. But then as the books and comics went on, it was just red, just straight red. And it's like, I never thought of that in my head as I read it from Zahn. But
for some reason, in my head, I always pictured Mara as kind of not looking exactly like, because that would be weird, but closer to how Tenel Ka looked on like the covers of the Young Jedi Knights. Just kind of a more like a more severe look on her face, a harsher look. Not harsh bad, but just like a meaner look, sterner look.
She like a what would you say, feminazi? Yeah, like that.
No. What is it? Bitchy resting face.
Oh yeah.
That's what it would
resting be. Bitch face.
Oh, well, that I prefer
either
bitchy. I prefer bitchy because
bitchy.
there's that's a little too that's harsh.
This is Star Wars Unfiltered, Jason.
I know, but geez.
It's resting bitch face. It's resting fembot face. That's what it is.
Anyway,
she'll have little nipples that shoot gas out and knock everyone out.
That's always how I picture it in my head.
Yeah, I can see that, because Mara always had an attitude a little bit, mostly before she softened to Luke in those early books. But she definitely was a firebrand, so to speak.
Yes. So I don't like it. I don't like those covers.
Star Wars Essential Legends.
I mean, I kind of like the Thrawn I get what they were doing. It's just when you're making choices as far as who's going to be and what's going to be on the cover, it kind of, I don't know. It's just like for Dark Force Rising, Why is
Mhm.
it a stormtrooper? It should just be something else. It could
Well,
have been.
remember the old THX remastered VHS? Remember how
I
the Stormtrooper was like the big thing on the Empire
No,
Strikes Back?
totally, and that's actually what I mean as far as like when you're making choices about what's on the cover. I
Yeah.
never liked that choice on the
It
cover.
was always a strange one. And then Yoda on Return of the Jedi, I mean, that was kind of okay, but he didn't have a huge part in
He's
that
in there for
movie.
like 2 minutes and he croaks.
Right.
It
I
should have
don't
been
know.
Palpatine or Vader
Yeah.
or
And
wait, who was on A New
Vader should have
Hope?
been the Return of the Jedi one. That should have been Vader.
He was on A New Hope. Is that what
A
it
New
was?
Hope should have been. I would accept a New Hope as a stormtrooper. I would accept it, but I don't know. This is going off spiraling
Yeah, I
into
don't know.
other
I
things.
don't know. Whatever. The covers are fine. It's whatever.
It's
We'll see.
fine. We're not buying these books anyway. We
No,
already have
no, I don't need them.
multiple copies.
I don't need them.
Yeah.
And Visions.
Star Wars Visions. What do you think of this?
I did not realize it was going to be all Japanese animation studios. I
Yeah.
didn't really read any of the um, the releases, the press
Yeah.
releases and stuff very
Yeah.
carefully beforehand.
Yeah.
I don't know if they had mentioned it, so I was a little surprised when that sort of teaser video came out.
It
And
was like full on. Like, here's your subtitles, guys.
yeah,
You're gonna
well,
need them.
it was like halfway through, and I was like, wait a second. Which is fine. I mean, it's cool. I don't know if I don't know how many animation studios are, you know, available outside of Japan at this point. It's still big
Yeah,
there.
that's
So,
true. But obviously, it seems like the intent of this was to go to the roots of the influence of Star Wars, which
yeah.
it's funny. Star Wars, I talked about this with someone else recently. Star Wars is this melting pot of so many influences, but if you boil down the Force to its very core, it's probably closer to Buddhism than anything else. And so it kind of makes sense in that regard that I could see that when Lucas and was developing the Jedi, that he was going for the samurai thing, obviously with
Well,
their
there is a
robes.
big, I mean, that is a big influence, but man,
Yeah.
people just obsess over that aspect of the influence of Star Wars, and I feel like they totally gloss over and ignore like the old serials
Oh, there
and
is
the
people overcompensate.
old
There is,
Hollywood movies from the 30s and 40s and
but
stuff
what I
that
was gonna say though, I think as far as the Jedi, I think Kurosawa and his movies and those samurai movies, I think that really it covers the Jedi well. The other
yes,
things, I think the serials is more about like the action set pieces and the pacing and like how the story is structured. That makes more sense.
yes,
But yeah, the when I finally saw like two or three Kurosawa movies and back in 2006, back when Netflix used to come in the mail. I don't know if it still does. Maybe it does. But I remember getting a bunch of Kurosawa movies because they kind of had the recommendation thing. Oh, you rented this, you'll love this. So I was on this Kurosawa kick, and I saw Seven Samurai, I saw The Hidden Fortress, I saw Throne of Blood. I was going for all the ones that Lucas had mentioned over the years.
yeah,
And actually, one of those discs even had an interview with Lucas talking about the movie
yeah.
and the things he had copied, so to speak, for A New Hope mostly.
Mhm.
And yeah, the influence of Japanese animation and Japanese cinema. I like that they're going with that for Visions because I don't know. I don't think in this case it's like, oh, we need to highlight this culture and be inclusive. This is just like this is going to be Japanese from the ground up, and that's cool. I'm totally down
Well,
for
and
that.
I think most, I won't say all, but most of the best animation, as far as traditional animation, 2D is,
Hmm.
comes out of Japan.
Yeah,
So it makes sense. Now, well, I will say, it occurred to me just now, what would be really cool, I think, is um, as far as something to follow up, maybe sort of focusing on the influence of Star Wars is you have like before every episode of some series, right? Like the next season of Bad Batch or Mandalorian or whatever. They have a 5 minute segment of a serial.
yeah, that'd be
So
awesome,
the whole season would have a 5 minute segment of a serial as the
dude.
the lead into it.
Yeah,
And it could be, it doesn't have to be Jedi or anything. It would be cool if it was like, you know, just some adventurer and
Yeah.
everything would just lead into the next, just like the old series. I think the serials were usually like 15 to 20 minutes, maybe a half hour long or something like that
And
before
you could
movies.
even do a shorter one. You could do a 5-minute one.
Well, no, that's what I mean. 5 minutes would be perfect, I think, for if you're
That's
leading
what.
into a half hour or 45-minute show.
Okay, when they came out with Forces of Destiny 3 years ago or whatever,
Mhm.
4 years ago, I think almost now, that should have been that. Instead, that was like focused on as this kind of big thing where they even had like toys aimed at girls, which then
Yeah.
sadly didn't sell, and they were in the bargain bins at Toys R Us because girls just don't buy toys like boys.
Maybe Afra, right? Because she's supposed to be a
Yes,
archaeologist or whatever.
right.
It could
Yeah,
be like a serial that, because and that sort of I wouldn't say lines up or anything, but it kind of harkens to a
Indiana Jones.
similar thing with Indiana Jones and how that's like very influenced by the old serials and
Yep,
stuff. They
yep.
could do that with an Afra series before every episode of Mando season 3 or something.
Absolutely. I
That'd be
think that's a
great.
great idea.
Yeah.
They really should. And
All right, if they do it, I want my checks. Lucasfilm, give me
that's
my
right.
checks.
That's right. So we're excited for Visions. I like that it's going to be canon stories that are official and tie into the larger continuity. Because it would be easy for them to just make these what ifs and just kind of do whatever. But I like that there's actually someone making sure it all fits. And obviously, if it's dealing with a lot of Jedi, it seems like we're probably going to be going into the prequel era or before. So
I would imagine. Why not? Where do
yeah,
we spend all our time now?
the
In
High
the
Republic.
past.
No, I don't know.
I'm not spending any time in the High
Yeah, we
Republic.
aren't. We aren't. That's like low priority for us. But
I'm spending all my time in the late 90s video games. That's where I'm
what we're
spending all
doing.
my time.
We have 1 foot there, and we have 1 foot in Disney Plus, and like that's it for us right now.
Yeah, it's
That's all we can handle. Being
definitely a lull right now.
41-year-old dudes. Yeah, so we're stoked for that, and it's coming, I believe, this fall, somewhere in there. I don't think it's been announced yet, but it's seems like if they put this out now, it's coming.
Yeah,
in the fall.
I think fall. I can't wait.
Me too. Okay, so we got a bunch of Bad Batch episodes. Obviously, taking a break, we didn't get our weekly Bad Batch review in, so we have 7 to talk about. But we'll keep these relatively short because there was a lot that were kind of slightly filler and
some more consequential than others.
Yeah,
as far as story stuff. So
yeah, definitely. So first one, episode 5, Rampage. Right off the bat, I want to mention: is this a reference to the video game in some way? Because you have lizards attacking the Rancor.
I didn't think of that.
It's the lizards that made me wonder. And then obviously, I mean, it's an open-ended word that just means destruction, basically. But I just thought, is this a little slight nod to the video game?
Possibly. It's funny because you mentioned video game, and then there was something I noted that I think we talked about this briefly off the podcast, but when we did our playthrough of the Shadows of the Empire, there's a level on Ord Mantell, and
that's right.
What is it? The droid references
Lebo
references that they're on Ord Mantell City, or they're at Ord Mantell City, or
right nearby.
He makes mention of it somehow, and we joked when he said that. We joked about there's no Ord Mantell City.
It's certainly never been referenced in anything else. It was just kind of like, that sounds silly, like Tatooine City,
right? And we went out of our way to point out that there is no Ord Mantell City,
right.
And then this episode rolls around. That was like, a month before this episode came out. And the episode, they go to Ord Mantell City.
That is very prophetic of us.
Yeah, it's weird. It's some weird synchronicity. So I'm like, okay, what's going on? So I go on Wikipedia, and in old EU, it was Wolport. That's right. The capital city of Ord Mantell.
Right.
And in the new canon, Ord Mantell City is the capital of Ord Mantell. So
it's the Matrix, man.
Someone has been waiting 25 years to fix this flub in canon in the
Yeah.
Shadows of the Empire video game, and they did it somehow. It's some Palpatine-esque execution
Yeah.
of years in the planning, and they did it. They fixed it.
Well,
Ord
just like
Mantell
War of
City
the
is
Bounty
now a thing.
Hunters, just like War of the Bounty Hunters, fixing Shadows of the Empire, according to that one article I saw.
Right,
Shadows of the Empire is fixed.
And that was before. I remember that article because that came out around the same time as all that stuff. And then I was like, wait a second, what was that article about? Because I didn't read the article, I just read the headline. I was like,
honestly,
were they talking about Ord Mantell City?
Yeah, I skimmed the article, and it was still a reference to Boba Fett taking the carbonite frozen.
Right. Who cares about that?
Shut up, fixing Shadows of the Empire. Come on, it's just
they gotta fix it now because you know what? It's canon. it's canon. They knew that is the framework. Shadows of the Empire, the video game, is the framework for all everything. New canon, unifying canon.
You know, it is cool though that elements from Shadows of the Empire seem to be getting their due, and I mean, this is the 25th anniversary this year,
right?
And that is cool. But and also the other thing about Ord Mantell I wanted to mention, this is the first time, and I made sure of this on Wikipedia. It has only ever been seen in either video games, novels, or comics. It's never been shown in an animated or live action series yet until now.
Right.
So that's pretty cool to see it in visual media that's mainstream. And
speaking of Shadows, also,
there
were Fallings on Ord Mantell in the episode.
That's right. And that has to be a direct Shadows. I mean, it is a direct Shadows reference because Fallings were never shown until Shizor. So.
Right. And that's the thing. I joke about that being like some 25-year retcon or whatever.
Yeah.
But the fact that there's Fallings and it's 25-year, anniversary, and it's like maybe somebody did. They just kind of,
I believe it.
I can't remember. I can't remember when I was looking at Wikipedia. I can't remember if this episode was what made Ord Mantell City the capital of Ord Mantell, if it was something before that in new canon. I'm not sure.
It could have possibly been something earlier. Ord Mantell did show up in the Darth Maul, Son of Dathomir comic series, which was early new canon. It was still made by Dark Horse, but it was created using Clone Wars scripts that were then meant for like season 7 or 8 and then like transformed into the comic. But I've not read it. I just saw that Ord Mantell
so now
is referenced in it.
I've bothered to go to Wikipedia, and it is the first appearance of Ord Mantell City is in Sons of Dathomir 2.
Oh, there we go.
And so the first identified as Ord Mantell City is Sons of Dathomir 3.
Okay,
so that was the
very interesting
impetus of that being the new canon.
And there was just to throw it out there was Fallings in a Clone Wars episode, which I don't think you've gotten to yet. It dealt with Darth Maul mostly and his
I'm just
Savage.
I'm just about getting there. I'm about halfway through the series now. So
but it's not a major spoiler, but Black Sun is mentioned and shown in some form, and there is Fallings in that episode. So it was like there was another obvious nod to Shadows. And that was like probably aired in 2011 or 2012, somewhere in there. So Shadows still bleeds through in various places of the new canon, and it certainly has made its impact on the larger Star Wars universe. Now, the other thing with this episode, you got this Rancor that basically this Trandoshan Sid, who is voiced by what's her name? Danny DeVito's wife.
Ray Perlman.
Yes.
Very distinct voice. As I'm old enough to remember watching Cheers when it actually was not just in reruns, but when it was on the air, and always liked her when she showed up in stuff outside of Cheers.
Right. All we need now is John Ratzenberger to show up as Major Derlin, and then we could have a Cheers Star Wars.
He could be his father or something. I mean, depending on how far we're getting up to, Empire Strikes Back. But wouldn't that be great though? If it
would be
was
really
his
good.
father or whatever.
And then throw in Ted Danson as a voice or something. Kirstie Alley.
No thanks. Kirstie Alley, okay, but I don't think we need Ted Danson.
Yeah.
Get Woody.
So anyway,
Woody. Yeah, let's see. Woody.
We got Woody.
Woody's been in Star Wars. Ray Perlman.
I'm sure there's other
anybody
connections.
else. I don't think.
I'm sure there's tangential connections here and there. Anyway, lest this become the Cheers podcast.
6 degrees of separation from Cheers and Star Wars.
The Rancor, they gave it a name. Now, it's obvious that, okay, so Bib Fortuna is wanting this Rancor to take the Jabba the Hutt. It seems like they were hinting that this is the Rancor from Return of the Jedi.
Which I reject.
I don't think that's the case, but it's weird. It's like this is like the mainstream hint of it. But if you look at the new canon, it according to Aftermath Life Debt by Chuck Wendig, the Rancor in Return of the Jedi was already named as Patissa. I don't know where that was brought into the story in Life Dead. I haven't read it yet, but
maybe Mala Keeley shows up.
Yeah, Mala Keeley. And that was released in 2016.
Which that is why I reject it, because it should have been Mala Keeley that
come to get
the Rancor, not Bib Fortuna. I mean, it wouldn't be. I guess it wouldn't be that obvious. You know, Bib Fortuna is very distinct. Even for Twi'leks, again, because of his goiter.
Casuals.
But maybe maybe Mala Keeley is always just shirtless and wearing that weird
his hood
thing. Goes up on Ord Mantell all greasy and sweaty with no shirt on, all fat.
He wants to keep his head warm, but he doesn't care about the rest of his body.
He can't get a sunburn on the back of his neck.
Yeah,
he's really concerned about that.
That's right. So it was an interesting thing with the Rancor, and it's funny, like, you feel really sympathetic for it. They make it kind of cute in a way, even though it is rampaging and fighting those lizard things and stormtroopers or whatever else they were fighting. I'm trying to remember if it was the Empire came or if it was just I forget. But
it couldn't have mattered much anyway.
No. But anyway, that's that episode. Do you have anything more to say about that particular one?
I really was bummed that it wasn't Mala Keeley.
I know
that showed up, because I really I liked his story in Tales from Jabba's Palace.
Yes.
And just, that whole scene where the Rancor dies and he's crying, it's really kind of funny.
Yeah.
With him and the weak way. Anyway, I mean, it was a good episode, but
yeah, it was a pretty good one.
I got a question. Is Sid in the Clone Wars at all, or she's a new character?
She is not in the Clone Wars.
Okay, because I'm only halfway through, so I don't know. She shows up, or she was introduced in last season. Which
right. There is other Trandoshans. Yeah, there is other Trandoshans. Actually, you might remember one from season 1 when R2 was captured by that junk dealer in the asteroid field, or the junk area, when he went missing for a while. But yeah, no, she was introduced for the Bad Batch, which is cool.
Well, I mean, Bosk shows up too,
and Bosk shows up. There's some other ones. We got episode 6 here, Decommissioned. The Bad Batch is sent to Corellia now they're working for Sid off and on to pay off their debt for her helping hide them, I guess. They are sent to retrieve a separatist
tactical droid.
Tactical droid, that's it. On Corellia, which is interesting. This is the first time.
That was cool.
Yeah, I don't think we'd seen Corellia even in Clone Wars. I think it was
just Solo. And it was it was pretty close. Like, they did a good job of like, oh yeah, that's Corellia. And I know that because of Solo. Like, even though 99% of this episode is set in one factory with no windows, and we don't see much else, right? Yeah,
other than a few shots. But and then we run into Rafa and Trace Martez, who were in season 7 of Clone Wars. And
speaking of ramming in characters in season 7,
right? It was cool though, because they had an interesting arc with Ahsoka, and I know you still got to watch it, so I'm not going to say much, but they had like a 3-episode or 4-episode arc with Ahsoka, and I remember thinking at the end of that, like, oh, we got to see them again at some point, because they are kind of interesting, and it seemed like their story was just beginning in some way. So I wasn't terribly surprised when we bumped into him again here, which is only assuming this is still like right after Revenge of the Sith and season 7 of Clone Wars is leading up to that, it's probably only a month or two after they met Ahsoka. But yeah, so they're working in this factory and they're trying to get the tactical droid, almost like playing football with it as it's passed around between the Bad Batch, and who else was involved? There was another party.
Whatever group, whatever third party is there, it's either the Empire, or it's the bounty hunters, or it's local security.
I'll just flip a coin and that's the answer.
Yeah.
But yeah, not much to say. I was kind of happy to see them again. They're not like my favorite characters by any means at all, but like,
well,
like
they are badass, and I can tell because of their haircuts.
Oh yeah, that's exactly what gave it away. They are strong female characters that
well, I mean they are that, but they need to, yeah, I don't know. It's kind of cliche.
It is cliche.
Now it's becoming cliche.
I know it is. But that's the Disney era. Yeah, not much to say. It was an alright episode. I was glad to see the continuation of their story. I'm sure we'll see them again. But yeah, not much to say.
Right.
Battle Scars, episode 7. There was a really cool reference here. The planet they go to, Braca, that is from Jedi Fallen Order. And you start on that planet in the game when you play as your character. And that's 5 years after this. But it was kind of the same thing. We see the beginnings of this planet being used as kind of a junking depot for Clone Wars tech. Because obviously there was a Venator, Star Destroyer, that the Bad Batch needs to break into with... Well, we didn't mention Rex and Rampage. Rex shows up in Rampage, and then they meet up with him again, I think in Battle Scars here. Because
because this was the culmination of his chip problem.
Yes.
Which they've been hinting at
Wrecker's
with the headache after he bumped his head.
Right. And this does also tie into season 7 Clone Wars stuff that you'll see. But yeah, so they need to get Wrecker's malfunctioning inhibitor chip out, and there's a medical station in this Venator, and stuff happens. Yeah, what do you remember about this one?
Two things. It had one of the worst cliches of any, of modern series, movies, cartoons, TV shows, whatever, where the character's laying low, but he's wearing his uniform or whatever. He's just got
with a poncho.
Rex is laying low. He comes in, I'm laying low, guys, and he's got his freaking clone trooper armor on with a poncho over it. It's the Star Wars. A poncho is the Star Wars equivalent of, in the Marvel movies, if you put a hat and sunglasses on.
Yes.
Like when Captain America is on the run.
Yep.
That's like the move, right? Yeah.
It really is. The same issue with Hunter. Hunter goes to these planets wearing his camo face paint and his red bandana, which is in all the wanted posters that the Empire has put out.
And then he even calls him bandana.
I know. I know, dude. So,
well, do we know that it's face paint? Maybe it's a tattoo.
Maybe it is a tattoo.
I've been wondering that watching the series. I've honestly been wondering is that a tattoo or is it face paint?
Or does the Star Wars universe not have tattoo removal lasers? They can blow up a planet, but if you have a tattoo, you're fucked.
They probably should have stopped at the tattoo removal pod on the Venator. Yeah. Maybe they were. They just didn't have time because it's all hell broke loose.
They're being attacked.
So it had that, but then it had also the coolest scene or shot or anything in the series so far with that whole when they activate the engine.
Yes. Was that in that one or Reunion, the next episode? Because the episodes dovetail into each other.
Oh, was it? No, that was.
Oh no, sorry. No, I think it was in the next one, Reunion.
Was it? No,
I don't know. Let's just say they're the same one because they both dovetail one to the next. They're both set on Braca. So, But yes, let's talk about that engine scene. I was even commenting.
because the next episode is when Cad Bane shows up and takes Omega away. This one they narrowly escape.
Okay.
Crosshair. I kept wanting to say Echo, but I was like, it's not Echo. It's not Echo.
Right.
And Crosshair gets burned up. And
but I was thinking as I saw it, I was like, this better be like real physics, where if they turn on an engine, someone better get their fucking ass burned, because
well, he got more than his ass burned.
Otherwise, it's just like, like we see so many engines blasting off in Star Wars and people not being that affected.
Yeah.
But they went full X-Wing versus TIE Fighter here when you fly too close to the back of a Star Destroyer. It's like your ship is taking damage.
Engine wash.
Yeah, I like Crosshair how probably had a little thing on his helmet saying you're taking damage.
That's that right. Noise. Right. But yeah, that was cool. I'd love to see something like that in like live action. That was a really cool scene. Just
or even a video game or something. Just like you really get the sense of size too on the engine, because we take it for granted seeing it in CG so much, and it's just like whatever, it's just part of the backdrop. But when they're actually in that engine area and you can see the size of it and they're sliding down and everything, it was really the sense of scale, and it is deadly. And Crosshair got pretty fucked up. He probably took a good dose of radiation.
Well, later on, I think in the last episode, he's got like, it looks like chunks missing from his head.
Yeah.
It's really weird.
Yeah.
The side of his head looks like a sponge.
Right. And I wonder if that affected his inhibitor chip, or I guess,
don't know. We'll find out, huh?
I mean, because something's going to be going on with Crosshair, I'm sure, as it goes on. But let's go back to what you briefly mentioned, Cad Bane, the return of Cad Bane.
Yes, in Reunion.
In the next episode. Now, Cad Bane had been rumored to appear for a long time, ever since Disney, because he's not really shown up in the Disney era, because technically he did. I think his last appearance might have been in 2013. I think it was the original last season of Clone Wars. It was either season 5 or 6 that he was last seen. Now, I think it was 2013 or so. And it wasn't like, I don't think it was anything weird where you think he's dead and he just, they faked it. I think he had an episode or something, and then we just didn't see him. So everyone kind of assumed, oh, he's got to be out there. They're gonna bring him back at some point. And I think there was early, I think there might have been story reels. I know there was scripts. There was plans for Clone Wars if they had continued with bigger seasons like the early days, and maybe even into season 8. They were going to have Cad Bane like train Boba Fett.
That would have made a lot of sense.
It would have made a lot of sense, and it might have still been part of the background canon, depending on how things go. Maybe they might just transplant that into the Bad Batch. But I specifically remember seeing a piece of art or CG work or something. You know how Boba Fett has that dent in his helmet?
Mm-hmm.
There was, in this Cad Bane script that never was finished, it showed him like shooting at Fett and then like nailing him right in the helmet, and then that was supposed to be how Fett got that dent.
That's like Indy getting the whip.
Yeah,
the scar on his chin. They gotta explain it, right?
I know. So that is interesting, and I was thrilled. I mean, I'm not like a major Cad Bane fan, but watching Clone Wars, he is a pretty cool character. I know for kids that grew up with Clone Wars, he's like a big deal. He's like their Boba Fett, basically.
Yeah. Well, and it makes I feel like that would really make a lot of sense with like his style.
Mm-hmm.
To that's sort of how how Boba sort of got sort of a Western style. Not that he's as Western as Cad Bane, but like Spurs, you know what I mean? That sort of thing. And actually looking over my notes and stuff, it was Reunion with the whole engine scene.
Okay. So what?
This is what happens when you're trying to talk about something that happened a month and a half ago.
I know,
Those
right?
2 episodes really did bleed together.
No, they did. And the other thing also, speaking of the Western motif, now we have two characters who are referencing Clint Eastwood with toothpicks. We got Crosshair and Cad Bane. So
yeah, we just need a like a cop, to
exactly
show up as Dirty Harry,
with some
a huge
like
a huge gun,
sideburns.
a huge blaster.
I know.
That'd be
Make my
great.
day. Yeah, so it's fun. Where are these guys getting these toothpicks anyway? They're constantly in their mouth. They must have a toothpick dispenser on their utility belt.
That's what they have the Wookiees, the slave Wookiees making on Kashyyyk is
They're just
toothpicks out of the
stripping giant
trees.
rocher trees for toothpicks.
Can you imagine the Empire? It's like, you guys gonna set up a refinery or a processing plant?
This is a toothpick
Oh, this is
factory.
a toothpick factory.
They would. They just to be dicks. The Empire would totally. Yeah. So I don't have much else to say about those. Those were pretty darn good. Got to see more.
As far
Rex.
as I thought Reunion was Battle Scars and Battle Scars was Reunion.
I know.
So
yeah.
basically the same episode.
Yeah. And then we got episode 9, Bounty Lost. So this was a continuation of the Cad Bane thing. So he captures Omega, and he's going to hand her off to the Kaminoans, basically, because it was Tonway, I guess, who was contracting him to do it. And then, but he doesn't go to Camino. They go to this planet called Boravio, which I don't think we've seen before. And this was
which is apparently a decommissioned Kaminoan facility, or had a facility on it.
And it's funny, it's really run down. It's nothing like Poca City on Camino.
Well, but presumably it was at some point.
It was at some point. But what's funny is it makes you wonder more about the Kaminoans now, because
this whole episode does, because this was probably the most consequential episode so far in this section of episodes, as far as like what are the Kaminoans doing, because it's Lama Su is the one who hired Fennec to get Omega.
That's
safely.
Right.
So there's conflicting motivations on the part of the Kaminoans as what they want from Omega. Go ahead. I
was gonna say, it's fascinating because we don't know that much about the Kaminoans, despite them being part of Star Wars now for nearly 20 years. There's still so much mystery surrounding exactly who they are.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I love that. So that we see this planet that's kind of run down, and yet there's still the leftovers of what seems to be cloning experiments, aka Snoke or something.
Well, that's what I was gonna say. We dodged a bullet with this episode, I feel like, because
in what way?
Well, because I know internally, personally, I was wondering, well, okay, is Omega special because she's like, a prototype for cloning somebody with force powers, not that they ever like really heavily hinted at it. I don't feel like, but it was like, okay, are they going to try and tie this into Grogu, and then also like the cloning that's going on there, and then try to do this like post / pre retcon to fix the Rise of Skywalker mess. That whole sequel mess. Like there's been like this
every time we see a tube in anything, it's like Mandalorian. There's something in that tube. It's going to explain Snoke.
Your cloning tube theory sucks. So I feel like there's been an effort, at least as far as like comic books are concerned, like a huge effort, a Herculean effort to like retcon and fix retroactively the theming mess of a story that is the sequels, as far as Snoke and Palpatine and cloning and
the Darth Vader comic series has done a lot of that kind of stuff.
Yeah,
too.
which I feel like they're burning down the original trilogy almost, and Vader in it, just to justify what happened in the sequel trilogy. But that's a whole nother thing. Anyway, I feel like we dodged a bullet, because it's not this like weird thing. It's just she is unmodified. She's an unmodified clone of Django, and they need that. Like, that's it. And they
Right.
don't know where Boba is. He's the only
Right.
other one. So they need him or they need her financially,
Hmm.
for a financial reason to like try and keep this cloning deal with the Empire going so they can keep, doing their
Right.
experiments and making tons of money and all that stuff.
Right.
So I feel like we're going down a better road than I was worried
Yeah.
we might go down.
Yeah. And now another thing I want to mention in relation to this, I feel like the Bad Batch really is truly, even more than Rebels so far, bridging things between the trilogies, because we're starting to see prequel characters that were semi important die. In the latest episode, not to jump too far ahead, but since we're nearing the end here, Orn Free-Taa, the Twi'lek senator, is killed. So his fate is sealed. In Bounty Lost, Ton Wei dies, who we've known, of course, since Attack of the Clones. So it's funny that these kind of key prequel characters, key as far as like their side slash background characters that are tied to the larger story, their fates are being resolved now with the rise of the Empire. So
Yeah.
Han Wei dies. I mean, we see her slumped over kind of in the distance. I'm assuming it's 100%. She didn't. She's not pulling you know, a Palpatine. I don't think anytime soon.
Somehow Tanway has
Yeah.
returned.
But yeah, so she dies, and that was kind of interesting. I'm glad they are like kind of giving the final fates to these characters, because it's like, okay, the prequels are a long time ago now. We're stretching on almost 20 years since Revenge of the Sith, so it's kind of time to kind of resolve these characters, like what happened to them,
Yeah.
So there's that, and then yeah, and so that was kind of the end of that arc, so to speak. And then we had we had one episode here that was the next week called Common Ground, which it was kind of a throwaway. It was the senator Avi Singh. He's strong armed into supporting the Empire on what was it, Raxus? It was
Yeah.
where the Separatist Senate was, I think, or one of the important planets for the former Separatists.
Yeah.
He's basically strong armed into supporting the Empire, but then decides at the last minute he's going to rebel, and then he's imprisoned. His protocol droid contacts Sid, who then contracts the Bad Batch to break him out. This felt like an A-Team episode or something. It was like, I don't know. It was the story of the week. It was just like, all right, break this guy out.
I had this episode on while I was doing other things, and I could just
Uh-huh.
tell. I was like, no, nothing's happening. No,
Yeah.
nothing's happening. I mean, it's fine.
Yeah.
It's just filler. Every
It,
series has this stuff.
it's fine. And sometimes these filler ones end up being more important when they fill in later seasons. Sometimes there's like elements that then come back, especially with Filoni, where it's like, oh, that was more important than I thought. So you never
Well,
know.
yeah, I would imagine that Senator Avi Singh will probably show back up.
Yeah,
That's my
probably
guess.
so.
That's my
And
guess.
it also seems like between this one and episode 11, Devil's Deal, the next one, the latest one, they're really setting up the little seedlings of the beginnings of the Rebel Alliance.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Because we're starting to see these planets not wanting to accept the rule of the Empire, but they're still kind of at the beginning. They're kind of like, oh, this might not be so bad. It's just the Republic with a new name at this point to a lot of people. But yeah, so in Devil's Deal, it starts right away on Ryloth, and I think it was like 15 minutes before we saw the Bad Batch, and they were only in it for 5, maybe.
They were in it for like 2 minutes in the smack in the middle of the episode.
Yeah, they were in it for 2. Omega got maybe 5 minutes.
This
So,
is
long story short,
Rebels prequel.
This is the Rebels prequel. But what's really cool is it was really fun to see Chopper again. I love Chopper. He's awesome.
Mm-hmm.
I like Hera a lot. I think she's a great character. That's a female character that I feel there's more depth and meaning to her than some of the garbage that Disney has shoved down our throats with other ones in recent years.
Because it's natural, it's organic. It's just it makes sense.
Yeah.
I will say that her animation looks weird to me because they did a good job of making her look like her adult self,
Right.
on Rebels, but her face is like the same size as like her mom's face. So then it looks. I was like, like it was weird to me. Like,
so it looked like a fat-headed Twilight kid.
well, kind of. I mean, but I think all the kids are like that. It just for some reason it like really stood out to me with
Right.
Hera, and maybe it's because it's like, oh, this character needs to look like she does later, and that
Right.
I recognize her and all that stuff. Because like
For the casuals again.
yeah, but Omega, I mean, Omega's got a big head. All the kids on the series has a big head, but
I guess it must be the stylistic thing of doing the CG and the way it animates and the way it.
Yeah, it was just something that stood out to me.
Yeah, no, I see what
It
you're
was just
talking about.
weird little
The
thing.
other thing about Hera, and I think this does tie back into Rebels, back when they visited Ryloth, I think in season 3, when Thrawn kind of captured Hera, if I recall. It's been a few years since I watched it, but I think she back then she made some reference to losing her accent because of being off world for a long time. Because she
Yeah.
hadn't on Rebels, she hadn't seen her father in like years.
Yes.
As he fought his war against the Empire, and it's funny that she does have a really strong accent.
Yes.
In this episode,
I was weirded out by that.
It is strange, but I think it ties into dialogue later, if I recall. So I'm gonna probably revisit Rebels maybe a bit later.
Oh god, just go straight to that episode. Don't like be like, oh, I need to watch all of them in order.
This order.
It's gonna be.
I know. I
it's
should.
Gonna be Black Fleet Crisis all over.
Yeah, I
again.
know. I know. I should. Now, what the other thing that's cool is almost the whole beginning, middle, and end now of Cham Syndulla and his Ryloth rebellion is being chronicled, because we had the beginnings of it in Clone Wars, a little bit with him, but mostly the planet as a whole, like fighting the Separatists, and then the Jedi came and Mace Windu came, and there was that whole thing. And then we saw the end of it in Rebels, where he's still fighting the Empire, and he and Hera have a reunion.
Mm-hmm.
And it's funny now to see the middle portion of this, where he's basically pro-Empire most of the episode, and then near the end, spoiler alert, he's thinking about killing Orn Free Taa in cold blood right in his face, but then Crosshair up on the cliff takes a shot and does it for him, and then he's just framed for what he wanted to do anyway.
Yeah.
And now the one thing I wanted to make note of here, I'm really surprised they do something as cold as taking a headshot from an assassin and you see the glow of it in his head. Like, that's pretty dark for a kid's show.
Yeah, well, I've noticed that with this show in general. Like, people die.
People die, and they're not afraid to show it.
Yeah.
And I feel like even more than Clone Wars.
But Orn Free Taa does not die, because they make a point of saying attempted assassination.
Really?
Yeah.
I thought he did die.
I thought so too, but I noticed that was it Rampart or whatever is like, for the attempted assassination of Senator Taa.
You know what?
Wait. But it's funny, they don't take him off on like a stretcher per se. I mean, I guess it could be just considered a stretcher.
Last I recall seeing him, he was on the ground out.
No, they show the clone troopers like carting him off on like a.
Okay.
It looks like one of them Costco like large item carts.
I think I kind of remember carts. It now. Yeah.
I noticed that because I was like, is he dead? Like, how do you survive that? But I think he just clipped him in the Leku. Yeah.
He's gonna.
I don't know what that does. Maybe he'll just have one.
He's gonna show up. He's gonna show up like the lobotomized astronaut in Planet of the Apes when Charlton Heston finds him, and he's got like stitches, and he's just like he looks like a vegetable.
You cut up his brain, you bloody baboon. No, he's gonna show up like Palpatine. The attempt on my life has
left me
scarred. He's gonna be missing a Leku.
And he's one of those weird Twi'leks that has 4 Leku, because
I don't think I ever noticed that.
It's weird. Once you notice it, then you can't unsee it. But like, he was designed that way for Attack of the Clones, or I think that was the first movie he was in the background. And then I think it was just a stylistic thing. I don't even necessarily think he was supposed to be a Twi'lek per se, but then the background book said, no, yeah, he's a Twi'lek. But then I think it was the Revenge of the Sith visual guide made a point probably Pablo Hidalgo. He made a point to say he's a rare kind of Twi'lek that has 4 Leku. So
yeah, looking at him closer, he actually doesn't look like a Twi'lek. Now that I look at him
to me,
closely,
he looks like another species related to Twi'leks.
he looks like a cross between Ahsoka's species and a Twi'lek.
Yes, the Togrutas.
Togruta, yeah.
Which, yeah, they have their own very similar thing. They
Because
got
his
sort of
the Q are like flat. It's
Yes,
kind of
they're more
weird.
floppy.
Yeah, look like dog ears.
Yes.
Whatever.
So
let's deep dive into Orin Frita lore here.
Right. So Devil's Deal, that was an interesting and really good episode. We didn't see much of the Bad Batch themselves. And you know what? I did love that little connection with Hera and Omega. That was kind of cool. That was still Filoni just like jacking himself off, but it was cool. It was sweet. I liked it.
Yeah, I'm gonna get all my original characters together.
Right.
It's fine, it's they're his babies, essentially.
Yeah. And I like these characters. I like Hera. I like the Bad Batch. And so seeing them interact with someone we know and love from a previous series is cool. I'm down for it, as long as it's done well and written well. And I think it was.
Everybody
overall,
has to cross paths with everyone else.
It's the Star Wars universe. Yeah. Doesn't matter if there's 10,000 settled systems. People are going to bump into each other.
Yeah.
But I got to say, overall, now that the good part about covering these in a big swath of a review, we can kind of talk about stylistically the season, how it's going. And yes, even though there's been some filler here and there, overall, this show is turning out great. The animation is beautiful. It's even better than Clone Wars at its later days. It's gorgeous animation.
Yeah.
I don't have much negative things to say about Bad Batch. I think it's I don't know. It's the main thing we got right now. There's no movies. I don't know. I love it.
It's good, and I'm actually glad. I'm really going through and watching Clone Wars. I'm very happy that this is only 14 episodes this season.
Yeah.
Right? Is it 14 or 16? I don't
16,
remember.
16.
Okay, 16. Yeah. Very good. Not to be 8 more episodes. 22 episodes, because I feel like there'd be a lot more.
There'd be more filler.
Especially very early on, because you're still like kind of feeling out the characters and all that stuff. Every series goes through that.
Yeah.
So better to keep it a little bit tighter than have to meander, because getting through those like first 1.5, 2 seasons of Clone Wars was kind of a slog.
Yeah, and the animation was rougher. And
yeah, I don't care that much about that. I mean, the most jarring part was the voice actor for Jar Jar.
Yeah,
not good.
That was a little different.
I can't wait until Ahmed Best takes over in the series.
Yeah, he does on those later seasons, at least more than once. I know that. I think a couple times. But yeah, it is interesting to compare and contrast. And like I said a couple podcasts ago, it was great to binge Clone Wars again and really refresh myself, because it has helped my appreciation of Bad Batch even more. So until
I can't wait to see how the season ends, and then even the series as a whole, because
I know,
how are they going to write these characters out of events?
What are they going to do? Ride off into the sunset, or are they all going to die in a blaze of glory?
Yeah, I don't know.
Could go dark. It could go dark, and they might do something.
Vader shows up. Vader shows up and narrowly almost kills them. That's the Filoni way.
Yeah.
Vader will show up, almost kill Omega.
That's going to be the one. Like, what happens to Omega? I wonder. But
maybe
guess we'll find out.
Maybe she hooks up with Boba.
Yeah.
You think they would know? You think Boba and them would know? I hope so.
I would hope so.
But hey, that's the Star Wars way, right?
I was gonna say that is the Star Wars way.
That would be. That's like. If they did that, that'd be like Filoni being like, "Oh yeah, well, clones, not brother and sister, they're clones."
Yeah.
What's funny?
Yeah.
Too is I just realized Omega is an unmodified replication of Jango Fett. No, that's modified at least a little bit.
It has to be a little bit.
I think so, right?
Yeah, unless they really went there.
I don't know what there is there. I mean, I get it, right? Like there's enhancements to the other clones.
Yes.
This is just you just tweak
I
the
would
chromosomes.
assume they changed the chromosome and that was it.
Yeah,
Less,
because interestingly enough, it makes sense too, right? Because, wait, no, it doesn't make sense. How would that work? Because the male dictates the sex of the kid, of the offspring, because the male has the Y chromosome, but females don't have two. They have two X's.
I
They don't have
forget
a
how it
Y.
works. Health class was years ago. I forget, but yeah,
Wait,
I get the basics of what you're saying.
It does, right? Because males have XY, right? Is that how it works?
I forget. I
Oh my
honestly
gosh.
forget.
Now I gotta look it up. Oh boy, this is
I think no, it's like Jurassic Park. They say everything is female until you introduce the
yeah, but that's
male.
frogs.
Oh
That's the
damn it!
frogs.
I can't be basing all my science knowledge on
Yes. Okay.
Jurassic Park.
It does make sense. Wait, does it? Yeah. No. Yeah. Okay. You could. Yeah. It'd work either way. No. Wait. You couldn't go. Okay.
We
Not
hope
that
you enjoyed this episode of Star Wars Unfiltered. Until next
I try
week.
to figure this out. Okay. If like you take Omega, but could you clone Omegas into males? Because females have two X's, they don't have a Y. So
Yeah.
how would you get the Y, right?
That would have to be an
Omega.
alteration.
Well, no, then what do? You can't. No, but that's what I'm saying. Like they could take two X's, they could just double the X to make Django clone into a female, right? But you can't. How would they get the Y from? I mean, you know, I don't know.
I think I know what you're saying.
It's science fiction, but there's no Y to make like if they started cloning off of Omega, they couldn't make males.
In other words, they would need a mother donor, is what you're saying.
No, they
somewhere in the mix here.
Well, I mean, then it's not a clone, right? You're like,
no,
then you're using other genetic material. But if you're just using the genetic material from Omega, and Omega only has two X chromosomes, you can't make a Y. So they would just be a female. That's what I'm saying. It's interesting because then it was like, boom, they're like all of a sudden the Empire's like, yeah, we need new shipments. Like, wait a second, why are all these clone troopers female? It's like, oh,
that's true.
This is all we could make. and then all stormtroopers are female.
Right. Maybe somewhere out there's a planet. See, this is Disney's dream right here. There's a planet of female stormtroopers.
Well, I'm just going down a rabbit hole, but it's a funny thing to think about in terms of like, you know, applying like hard science, right? Hard realistic science to like, you know, stupid sci-fi fantasy stuff. It's like, well, you can't, you know, you can't make
technical commentaries on force.net. It's like that in a way. No, the Endor system did not survive. The flaming wreckage.
You know what? I think we just figured out why they had to switch from clone troopers to conscripts, because they get Omega back, and then all of a sudden they're like, oh man, we can only make females, and the Empire's like, well, we don't want females, and then they're like, okay, guess we'll do conscripts, and then that's it. That's how it works. I figured it out.
That was Project War Mantle right there in a nutshell.
Yeah, there you go. We cracked the code.
And let it be known that the scripts have written that in the year 2021,
and let it be known, we as a podcast do not presume to say anything about X, Y, genders, anything, lest anyone come.
That's right.
Come for our heads saying we're trying to imply anything about.
I identify as a rock.
Modern gender issues.
Yeah. This is like the equivalent of that Facebook notification that people type up on the profiles, the cut and paste. Facebook cannot say or do or use anything.
This is when you go on YouTube and it's like, learn more about COVID-19. Or Facebook.
University.
Facebook does the same thing.
Exactly.
Well, that's all I have to say about that.
There we go. The perfect end to our Bad Batch recapitulation, I guess you could call that. We're going to do another episode here pretty soon here, probably next week, and we're kind of catching up to where we left off. We have a lot of topics just around the bend that we've been talking about. I know off the top of my head, I want to talk about the Shadows of the Empire anniversary more in depth, as far as talking about probably the comic series and maybe even the novel. We've recorded the video game for our channel, which will be uploaded very soon, probably right after Rogue Squadron. And
I better edit those.
Yeah, we still have our long gestating. I don't know when it's going to happen, if it'll even be this year, because it requires so much research on our part. But our celebration special is definitely one coming out at some point. But again, that'll be hours of research, days of research. We got to get all our receipts together from every store. We bought every action figure.
It's gonna be a lot of work.
It's gonna be a lot of work, but it'll be fun. And especially if you want to know what CDRs I burned for the trip out, you're gonna get all that info. But no, there's going to be more fun topics in the days ahead here. And because we have this kind of lull between movies and other things, there's going to be more time to delve into the obscure nooks and crannies of Star Wars. A lot of it from the 90s, but we're going to even get into some more prequel stuff too in the weeks ahead. So stay tuned for that. And I think that does it for this episode. So until next time, be sure to check out the YouTube channel, Star Wars Unfiltered. We are at Facebook. We are also at StarWarsUnfiltered@yahoo.com for any questions or comments. And don't forget to check out the Instagram page, which I just updated today for the first time in 6 weeks.
Ooh.
And the Rogue Squadron is uploaded as of today. By the time this comes out in a day or two, we should have the second Rogue Squadron video, lore play commentaries from the classic 1998 video game. And until next episode, everybody, take care.
Good night.
Now, what do you call a nervous Jedi?
What?
Panicking Skywalker.
Oh, get out of here.